Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review. And I did a video yesterday on a review of the film Mr. Baseball. But I wanted to throw with it. I'm gonna cut off early because I was interrupted by a phone call, so hopefully it won't happen today. So I decided to do that video and then I'm going to repost this video on my YouTube channel. So I'm doing a review once again of the 1992 film Mr. Baseball, starring Tom Selleck. And it came out way back in 1992, and this is definitely, if I had to make a list of my top 10 worst baseball movies, this one would be like number two. Um, Not referring to it as shit, but when you're not number two on my list as the worst baseball movies, number one has to be the Bengals Bears Go to Japan. This one would be like a very close second because this movie is just terrible. And Mr. Baseball was actually one of three baseball movies that came out in 1992. The other two, which I previously reviewed, were The Babe, starring John Goodman, and A League of Their Own, starring, of course, Gene Davis, Tom Hanks, and Madonna. Now, those two were uh, definitely better than this one. I mean, when I say three times the charm, I don't mean this movie. This movie was shit. From pretty much from beginning to end, because some of it, at least the beginning of it, just didn't. It had an interesting premise, but the premise fell flat. And I'll say why. Of course, the movie, like I said, stars Tom Selleck as an aging baseball player playing for the of all teams, the New York Yankees. He gets replaced by a younger player who just happens to be Frank, making a cameo, future Hall of Famer Frank Thomas. And I do have an upper deck baseball card of Tom Selleck with reference to the Mr. Baseball movie. Anyway, he like I said, he's an aging ball player. And instead of making him like a making him like the DH, which they could have. Since of course the Yankees are the American League and they have the DH there. But what they decided to do was to train him. So okay, what train me to? They trained him to a team in Japan. Now that's where the biggest that's where the premise is. But unfortunately, there's a misnomer in that premise, and the misnomer is that major league. For those of you who don't live in the United States who happen to be watching this video, uh, except for Canada, because they have a team in Canada, the Blue Jays. There is not a contract between Major League Baseball and the Japanese Baseball League on the Pacific Coast League. There was no agreement between those two leagues to openly trade players from a Japanese team to a Major League Baseball team or vice versa. But they did that they suspended your disbelief in that for this movie because there was no such thing where you could trade a player from, let's say, the Yankees to, let's say, the Tokyo Giants or the Cebu Lions or any of the teams that's playing in Japan. There is no, we can't trade players from the United team in the United States to Japan. But they did this. But they did it in this film. But naturally, of course, when they do go into it, and they actually did it well, was how the players are hyped in Japan, especially American players hyped over there in Japan because they're called gaijin, which is the Japanese word for foreigner, and they consider them helpers, even though the Tom Selleck character is supposed to be the best player on the team and the home run hitter, because he was traditionally a home run hitter here in the United States. So he figures he's the best player when he was conceited enough to say, "Hey, I'm the best player on the team. You sign me. You sign me to this huge deal. Why shouldn't I be the best player on the team?" And they were hyping him as the best player on the team, and it was actually owned by all Japanese teams. It's kind of almost the same thing here in the United States, where teams are owned by corporations. Some cases they're owned by individual owners, like George Steinbrenner owned the Yankees. or the real punch on the Mets. Uh, it doesn't work that way in Japan. They're all owned by corporations. And instead of being named by the city they play in, like the Tokyo Giants, they're named after the corporations. And the Seibu Lions, that's the name of the corporation that owns the team, Seibu. Anyway, uh, there was a lot of hype between Tom Selleck's character, and fortunately for him, none of the American last names they tripped the Japanese tongue, but not his last name, Elliot, which is the name of this character. Uh, and of course, when the Japanese team, the Japanese manager, tries to tell Tom Selleck how they prepare for a game, how they go through this, the rigors of spring training and the rigors of team workouts. They do everything as they do everything as a team. And when they do all these all these different kinds of exercises for the bodies, Tom Selleck goes, "This is bullshit. This is go crazier than the stuff we do in the United States." And the manager says, "Okay, how do you do in the United States?" So of course he tells them how they do in the United States, how he prepares for a game, and it was a pretty funny scene, but it comes off as silly or making fun of the Japanese style of training. Uh, Also, another thing they do in the Japanese league that they don't do here in the United States is that all the teams travel by train. Of course, here by train it would take too long to go, let's say, from New York to California or go to Seattle by train. It would take way too long. There are certain times where teams do go by train to certain cities, but it's very rare. Unless they happen to have an off day the next day. But sometimes, the Mets do it sometimes. When they travel from Philadelphia to here, or from here to Philly, sometimes to go by train. Or the Yankees go to Boston to go by train instead of by plane. But it's very rarely that happens. In Japan, they travel all by train. And they use the bullet trains to go there. To go from city to city because I guess it's cheaper. And also don't forget Japan is not as big as the United States is in terms of miles. Anyway, so Tom Selleck's character is having a really rough time adjusting to playing in Japanese baseball. Of course, one of the bets that they have, and they brought, I know they changed the rules since then, but the time they made the movie, and it's been this way for a long, long time in the Japanese league, they only allow 2 foreign-born players, or 2 non-Japanese players, playing on each team in the Japanese league. And that's a rule for a long time. And actually, they actually did have 2 separate rules for statistics. If a foreign-born player, like Carl Tuffy Rhodes, who used to play for the Chicago Cubs, and I think he had a home run record for a single season record in Japan, and they put like an asterisk on him, kind of like they did with Roger Maris, because he was a foreign-born player. He was the most home runs hit by a foreign player. And I think eventually they got rid of that because people were making a stick. Hey, you're discriminating against him because he's not a Japanese player. Same thing with Tom Selleck, who was having a tough time adjusting. By the way, he's treated as a foreigner because he decided to be the best player, the best hitter on the team with his home run hitting skills, and he's not being treated as the quote star as he is, or his own mind. And of course, there's one scene where where Tom Selleck's character gets suspended for. I think he actually gets suspended twice in this movie, if I remember right. There's one particular scene where the batter who hit before Tom Selleck hits a home run. So of course, usually, guess what happens? The next batter gets hit. Same thing in the Japanese league. Tom Selleck was the next hitter, and he gets hit. And what happens is, in the Japanese league, if a pitcher hits a batter, and if the pitcher tips his cap, it means he doesn't mean it. They didn't do it on purpose. Well, the Japanese player did tip his cap to Tom Selleck, but Tom Selleck thought he did it on purpose anyway, and he turns him out. And the other American player that was on the team with Tom Selleck says, "Hey, he didn't mean it. He tipped his cap, and he tried to tell him before he actually grabbed Tom Selleck or tried to grab him. So he won towards him out. So he tipped his cap. He didn't mean it. So I don't care. He meant it. He meant to hit me, and he turns him out. Well, later on in the movie, different picture, but same incident. He gets hit. Tom Selleck gets hit, but the pitcher did not tip his cap. So Tom Selleck says, tip your cap." Wouldn't do it. So of course, guess what happens? He turns him out, and you have a fight, and gets suspended. So what happened was the rest of the movie, the manager of the team trying to teach Tom Selleck how to be more Japanese-like, more Japanese in his thinking, thinking more of the team instead of himself, because he want to think more of a team, of the group unit, instead of thinking individually. Trying to change his way of thinking. And while he's doing this, one of the managers trying to teach Tom Selleck how to be like more Japanese instead of American. Tom Selleck ends up falling in love with the manager's daughter. And when they had that change of pace in the movie, they flipped it. They flipped the premise of the movie to that. I thought it was to, yeah. What I mean by this, that they completely changed the premise of the movie. If they kept the premise the way it was, how tough it is for an American player playing in Japan, I would have liked this movie better. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. They kept it as they made it into a premise movie. How, like I mentioned before, how tough American players have it in Japan and all that stuff. That was an interesting premise. But then when they switched it to a love story, because you have Tom Selleck, I don't know if he was ever named Sexiest Man Alive, but we fell in love with him when he was in starring in Magnum P.I. It was originally supposed to be Indiana Jones, way back in 1981. But he signed on to do Magnum P.I. and they started shooting that show. By the time they were showing the movie, but he couldn't do it, so he couldn't play Indiana Jones. But he had a very good career after that. But this movie, I felt, hurt Tom Selleck's career because the movie was that bad. Like I said, if I had to make a list for the worst baseball movies, this one would be like Banner's Bears Going to Japan would be number one, and Mr. Baseball would be number two. And the funny thing is that movies about Japan, baseball movies are made in Japan, they don't work well. They don't work. I mean, if you watch my Banner's Bears series review, I was not thrilled about the third movie. It was terrible. A lot of the original characters were not in that film, and it was terrible. It didn't really focus on the teams, and didn't really focus on that. It was on the subplots, on the side stuff, and not focusing on the on the beers in that film at all. In Mr. Baseball, it should have kept focus on the Tom Selleck trying to confirm into the Japanese league, or at least try to not really compete, but at least try to be accepted in the Japanese league and trying how tough it is for an American player to play in Japan, and how the foreigners are treated in Japan, particularly in the baseball leagues. They have kept that premise. I think it would have been a much better movie, and I think maybe because it was not enough of a premise to keep the attention span going, so they had to throw in a love story in this thing. That's what I don't like about when baseball movies are trying to put like a love story in it. I mean, in some movies it worked. Like it worked in Natural, it worked in it kind of worked in Major League a little bit, but that wasn't the main plot in Major League, so that's why it kind of worked. And Mr. Baseball, they like half was the original premise. Tom Selleck in Japan, the other half was his love story, and the love story part of it just did not work. It didn't work. It didn't work for me. It was like forced. They have a love story because it's Tom, having Tom Selleck in the movie. You gotta have a love story with Tom Selleck. But it just didn't work. To me, it just didn't work. The movie just didn't work for me. Um, like I said before, I do like Tom Selleck. I'm a fan of his. Um, but this movie was horrible. I'm sorry, I'm fixing my hair. I am due for a haircut. But this movie was terrible. I mean, it definitely is one of the worst baseball movies I've seen. I know most people will probably pick the original Babe Ruth movie with William Bendix, but this one is one of the baseball movies I have seen. This movie is definitely one of the worst. It's definitely in my top two of worst movies. Like I said a couple of times already, it was that bad. So let me review of Mr. Baseball. Please click on the video. Please rate it. You're not going to be able to make comments on this video, which is a shame. Maybe eventually, sometime down the line, I might change my stance on it. But because, like I mentioned in previous videos, because of a certain family in my co-op have nothing else better to do than to rag on me or call me something that I'm not on my videos. So because of that, I have to disable the comments. I don't want to do it, but I have to do it. Just to keep that crap off my comments on my videos. I know there are people out there who have nothing else better to do than to make negative comments. But when you call me something, it's one thing to make a negative comment on the video. I mean, I could take that stuff. If you think I'm wrong in these videos, I got a fact wrong, and if you correct me on it, that's fine. And I don't have a problem with that. But if you call me something that I'm not, like this particular family did, then that's when I have to draw the line and say, okay, no more comments. So like I said, please click on the video, please rate it, please subscribe to my channel, and please forward this video onto your Facebook pages. You can check out all my videos on not only on my YouTube channel. You can also check out all my video, a good chunk of my videos, and all of them at rallyc.com. That's all WDY, the letter C.com. It's the home site of the Rally reviewer, Christy Moore, who you may have agreement he is agreed to post some of my videos on here or on his website. Check out all of his content as well, his TV trash videos, and plus all the other content on his website. He does a great job with his TV trash videos. He does a really terrific job. I've been a fan of his pretty much since I had a YouTube account, and I saw some of his videos originally on YouTube. Now I've seen his videos on his website. He does a terrific job. And I hope, Chris, if you haven't watched this video, please keep up the great work out there that you're doing out there. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and catch you next time.